Hey there! You're listening to Amplify Your Legacy. This podcast is packed with insights and strategies to turn your passion into something that endures for generations. So get comfortable, stay inspired, and let's jump into today's episode with your host, Salana Brown. Welcome back to another episode of Amplify Your Legacy. I'm your host, Salana Brown. Today we have a lovely guest joining us, Ryanne Siddiq. Ryanne is a reformed financial professional who has loved cars her whole life. When debilitating symptoms of Lyme diagnosis forced her to hit the brakes on driving cars, Ryanne wrote about them instead. She became a best-selling children's book author and a passionate advocate for kindness, resilience, and self-worth. Today, you can find Ryanne racing through books, motherhood, chronic illness, and life one corner at a time. Ryanne, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Salana. I'm happy to be here.
Ryanne, I've given our listeners a little taste of who you are, but in your own words, can you tell us more about yourself and what you're doing right now?
Myself, I am the self-professed car girl. And when I say car girl, I just love to drive. I will drive anything you can give me a key to. Doesn't matter. I will turn anything into a race car. And, a lot of people are all about, just get me from point A to point B. For me, it's about the journey. So here I am, my own journey with my health and my former career. I have somehow ended up exactly where I needed to be. So I'm just incredibly grateful for the opportunity. I am having the time of my life writing children's books about cars and enjoying the journey, enjoying the drive.
Love it. Now, I have to ask, what's the story behind your love for cars, your race cars in particular? Most people wouldn't expect it. Was there a defining moment when you realized racing wasn't just an interest, but a passion?
I don't think there was any defining moment, so to speak, but I remember, as a young girl, being in my pink frilly dresses because my mom could not get me into pants. But I was in the sandbox, with my Matchbox cars. They're Hot Wheels now, but they were Matchbox cars back then. And just making roads and cities and just playing with these cars. And over time, they just got bigger and more expensive. So I have a lot of people ask me, are you into cars because your husband's into cars? I have a very healthy respect and competition between my husband. My life goal is to beat him on the racetrack. So we ended up just, as we grew and we started, to make a little bit of money, going from young adults to older adults. And we joined car groups and just we started with drag racing, and then all of a sudden we're doing circuit tracks, and it was just, there's this feeling of freedom and power that you don't get anywhere else that I've found in a safe environment. And like I said, I don't care if I'm in the slowest car out there on the track. I just, I want to go and I want to do my best. And if that means that I'm a couple of seconds quicker than, my previous lap, I don't care that I'm slower than anybody else out there. Have I done better against myself?
Sure.
And I can usually beat my husband by a little bit in the morning. But by the afternoon, I'm super tired and my body is shutting down and he just creams me. But, I can brag a little bit. I can beat him a little bit.
I know racing is your passion. And I also know that Mario Andretti is one of your inspirations. He's not just a legend
legendary driver, but also someone who embodies the spirit of taking control, staying focused, and pushing limits. Can you share your favorite quote from him, and what does it mean to you?
So the quote that's attributed to him is, "When life throws you curves, downshift and take it aggressively." And as I've gone through my journey with my health and just feeling so incredibly awful, what I've realized is there's so many parallels to racing, to being on a track, and life. And so this quote is like, it's just so completely mind-blowing to me, because my illness was my biggest curve. And to a driver, especially driving a manual transmission, when you're going around a corner, you have to slow down a bit, right? But downshifting is where the power is. So when you slow down and you find your power, then you can come out of that corner faster and stronger. So my illness with my corner and me taking it aggressively was shifting from being a financial professional to being a children's book author. And it's one of those things where everybody has curves, right?
Sure.
And we can sit here and we can talk about, how bad they are, and, all of the negatives to these curves. And I think we should grieve when we need to grieve. I'm not telling anybody don't grieve. But at the same time, I'm so grateful for that curve, because I wouldn't be here today where I am without it.
So true. And I loved your perspective on that. You said that there are so many parallels between being on the racetrack and navigating life curves. There, it's twists and turns. What's one lesson from race car driving that you apply to life and your business?
I would definitely say you're going to make mistakes, right? So every lap on the track, you have an opportunity to correct your mistakes from the laps before, to do a little bit better. So I go back to, this kind of competition with myself. I'm not going to be any faster necessarily than any of the other drivers out there, but can I be a little bit better than myself on the previous lap? And the answer is not always going to be yes, but that's my goal. So I think that's, been a huge lesson for me, is just in life, just like on the track, can I be a little bit better today than I was yesterday? Can I feel a little bit better today than I did last week? So I think that's the biggest lesson, and it does apply both in your personal life and in your business as well, because business owners also make mistakes, and it's not about not making mistakes. It's about, what do you learn from them, and can you be a little bit better today than you were yesterday?
I love that. I was just thinking about you as a young child. With all of your experience, what piece of advice would you give another young girl?
There's going to be voices, whether it's other people's voices or even your own voices. And sometimes you need to ignore those voices and just do it anyway. And some of these voices will be helpful and some of them will be hurtful. But when you're in the car, there's no voices. It's just you and an engine.
Sure. Exactly. You talk about joy. You talk about resilience, something I think we all need more of in our lives. Um, what's one simple thing that brings you joy every day, no matter what kind of day you're having?
And it's driving.
Just
And
try.
it doesn't matter, you know. It can be just going to pick up my kids from school. You know, those few minutes of driving to get them, you know, and I've got the music blasting, or, you know, we have cars that have kind of loud exhaust, which to some is, you know, obnoxious, but to car people, it's like music in itself. So, you know, it's, can you enjoy these little things? And, you know, to me, again, it's not about getting from A to B, it's enjoying the drive. So I'm really fortunate that because my husband also loves cars, that I have options of just amazing things that I can drive on a daily basis. Um, and so that does help. That makes a difference. But just finding joy in just these little things, even just driving, that's my thing.
Yeah, I see. Now let's rewind a bit. You were once an award-winning financial professional, and now you're a best-selling children's book author. What did becoming an author mean to you?
So my journey was when, well, I was in finance for many years and award winning, from customer service standpoints, but you know, from a firm of 10,000 people in my position, 350 of us were awarded these honors, and I was able to achieve that 3 times out of the 4 times that I was eligible. Um, so that was a really powerful thing for me, just knowing, again, I'm bringing joy to people and serving people in a way that was meaningful to them. But when COVID hit, and now I'm having to stay home with my kids for distance learning with financial firms at the time because of federal regulations, I couldn't work from home.
Sure.
So again, we talk about this like, um, the blessings and the silver linings, because at the same time all of this is happening, my symptoms really started to become debilitating. And it was actually having COVID that brought these symptoms full force. And
Oh.
it was like debilitating fatigue. I could not get out of bed. Now I'm having tremors in my hands where I'm dropping things and I can't write. I'm so hypersensitive to everything, to all my senses. So light, sound, taste, smell, my kids touching me. So now I'm having
Wow.
to distance myself from everyone because my body can't handle it. I'm so overstimulated. And the only thing that I could do was read. And I read voraciously. And when I say I read, like, I was not reading self-help. Like, no, that was not the phase of my life that I was in. It was pure escapism. And the more that I was reading, the more ideas started to come into my head, to the point where they had to come out, and Speedy Phoebe was born. So to me, this journey of being an author, becoming an author, now I get to put lessons into my books about kindness to yourself, kindness to others who were not kind to you, being resilient, like you said, all of these lessons. And then I look back at them and I realized, oh, I needed to hear that lesson too when I was not feeling well, that I needed to be kind to myself,
Exactly.
that I needed to be resilient, and I needed to show my kids what resilience looked like. And so for me, becoming an author, it It was a career shift, of course. It was also healing
Mhm.
and cathartic and just such an important reminder of all of these things that are easy to forget when you're in these really dark moments and just feeling horrible. Um, so there's so, again, I'm just so grateful for everything that happened. I could look at it and I could say, oh, that was horrible. And, I hate having this illness. And I do, but I'm also grateful for it.
That's important because when we're feeling down, a lot of people think gratitude is the last thing that you should think of. But that's the first thing that we should think of. And that story is such a powerful one. You talk a lot about resilience and finding joy in the journey. So many people struggle with change and unexpected detours. Why do you think sharing your story is so important for others who might be facing unexpected curves in their lives?
Because we all face these curves. Your curves are going to look different from mine, but they're still curves. And so if I can show how I've taken some pretty awful curves and have still found the joy, have still found the gratitude, then I think it helps others be able to look at their story, at their curves, and in their journey, and be able to do or start to do the same. And I think that's true of adults, but also children, because they're learning from us. And this is such a huge thing for me and my kids, because I'm not the mom that I wanted to be, because my health doesn't allow me to be that mom. But they are still learning so many things that I wouldn't even have thought that I needed to teach them about empathy,
Mhm.
about caring for others, about, like I said, when they have their own curves, being resilient through them, what that looks like. And to me, you know, showing these kids, not just mine, but these other kids, through stories, through joy, that they too can be strong, even if they're not the most powerful, that they can be kind, even when people are not kind to them. So being able to pass on these stories, it just, the joy that it brings me, bringing joy to others is just, it's indescribable.
That's lovely. Um, you definitely show that you're helping so many, your children and other children as well. You're helping them embrace the journey rather than fear the detour. You've been through quite the transformation yourself. How do you fuel resilience and self worth in others through your books? What is the name of your first book again?
So the first one is Speedy Phoebe.
Tell us about that.
In Speedy Phoebe, she is excited for field day, which is her school races. And Phoebe is based on one of my old race cars. And again, this car was not the most powerful. She was not going to be out there beating all of these bigger, more powerful cars. But this car had so much heart, and you could just slam it around that track. And this car was like, what else you got? You know? So this is a little bit of where Phoebe and her spirit have come from. And in the story, the other carlets, which are the young cars, are not very nice to her. And it's A little bit of they're boasting about their own traits, and a little bit about kind of bringing her down, and making her doubt herself. And so Phoebe has to remember that just because she's the smallest, well, that's actually a benefit going around corners.
Mm.
And she's not the most powerful, but she can shift gears really fast. So in the story, Phoebe has to look at herself and remember what is good about her, before she can go on, and then she wins the final race. And she also wins the most valuable Carlet trophy because she was nice to others who were not nice to her. So I just feel like the lessons in the book, they're not super in your face. It's not preachy. At least I tried not to make it preachy. But again, like, these were things that I needed to hear. And if I need to hear them, then I know others need to hear them too.
Definitely. Definitely. We all experience moments of self-doubt, especially when we're stepping into new challenges and new chapters of our lives. How do you handle those moments? It seems like you put them in the book, with Phoebe, and her pushing forward, even though she's small. I like that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about legacy. Um, how does your journey impact your legacy?
So I feel first and foremost that as an author and as a storyteller, these books and these stories are a legacy themselves,
Oh, yes.
because they will be available, forever. As far as my personal journey and my legacy, again, I want people to see their own worth. I want them to be kind to themselves. And with my children, I want them to see, even though I was so sick, I worked really hard to create something joyful and happy. And I hope that the legacy that I leave is that joy and that resilience.
I love that. I also love saying, be the first, pave the way. Have you been the first in your family to accomplish something? What's the first for you and your family?
Well, being an author, being a published author.
Okay. Great. Any other family members love writing? What about your children? Do you know?
Yeah, so my daughter loves writing, and she has actually, so she's 10, and she has sent me some stuff that she wants me to edit because she wants to publish it. And so
Oh, I
it's
love
it's
that.
been a lot of
That's
fun. And
great.
when I went to one of her school teacher conferences, her teacher mentioned that, that she watched me write and become a published author. And so it was something that she wanted to do as well. And it just, like, it brought me so much happiness that, not only does she want to write and to publish, but that she wants to follow in my footsteps. And hopefully, without all of the health stuff, hopefully she can be much healthier and do this. But
I
it's
hope
still
so.
something, it just made me so proud. And I was just so incredibly happy.
That's amazing. So that's a legacy that you could pass down as well. Wow. How do you hope your story will inspire future generations to embrace their own journey?
Well, I hope that future generations read the story and they see exactly what I see, that here's this little car that just had so much heart. And what can they do to have that much heart?
Tell us about your second book. You have another book out now?
I do, yes. So the second book is now Phoebe and one of the other Carlets from the first book, who was not very nice to her. They're now friends, because that's the power of kindness in some situations. And in the second book, they work hard together to earn money for Michaela, the other Carlet's new wheels. And they come across an accident that forces them to hit the brakes. And Michaela has to decide, is she going to use that money for what they had intended it for? Or is she going to turn around and help a friend who had been helpful for her? And so that's the second book. The title is Speedy Phoebe and the Really Great Friendship. And, because I got to lean into the car puns, of course.
Certainly. I love it. I love it. Do you have any advice that you would like to share with your young readers?
I think for any reader, the theme of this whole conversation, kindness to yourself, finding joy in the journey, and being grateful for whatever curves are thrown at you. I think those are such powerful lessons. And if there's anything that's going to land from this conversation, that's what I would want it to be.
Great. That's great. You're a big believer in dreaming big. What's a dream you haven't chased yet but want to?
Oh, I would love to drive on an amazing track. And I've been really fortunate. We have a Formula One track a couple of hours from where I live, which is just amazing. And I've driven on it a couple of times. But a super famous track like Laguna Seca or something, that would be just an absolute bucket list item, and a dream for sure.
Okay, great. How do you hope people will describe your impact years from now? What do you want to be remembered for?
Oh, I am going to say I want to be remembered for my passion and my joy, regardless of the curve.
That's good. That's great. I know you love great food.
Yes.
What's your ultimate comfort food? What's your ultimate comfort meal?
Oh, so my family is Italian, and like I always default to pasta. But I will say that my mother-in-law makes the best, we call it Diwali, which is like the rolled grape leaves with rice and meat in them.
Yes.
So if I have somebody else cooking for me, like that's what I want.
Love it. Lastly, I have to ask, as a past financial professional, what advice would you give entrepreneurs when it comes to starting their own legacy? Any financial advice that you can give to them?
I'll step away from the car quotes for a minute, and I'll go to a Warren Buffett quote. And Warren Buffett said, "Be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy. So I think, to me, what he means by that is when you see everybody going and saying, oh, wow, look at this, everybody needs to put their money in this, that's when you need to kind of hold yourself back and look for other opportunities. So as an entrepreneur, when people are telling you, oh, that's really dangerous, you shouldn't do that, maybe that's exactly what you should be doing.
That's a good way to look at it. So, Ryanne, this conversation has been incredible. Just the way you look at things, your perspective. You shared so much wisdom and laughter and inspiration today. Before we wrap up, where can our listeners connect with you and follow your journey?
I can be found on Instagram and my personal website, my author website. So my Instagram is Ryanne Siddiq _author. And my website is www.𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Ryanne.
It's been wonderful. I really appreciate your time and the conversation.
And to our listeners, remember, life will always throw you unexpected curves. But as Ryanne has shown us today, it's all about embracing the journey and racing towards your dreams. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend who needs a little extra inspiration today. And don't forget, today's sponsor is Home Club Capital, your nationwide private funding partner for your real estate investments. Visit homeclubcapital.com to learn more. And until next time, keep pushing forward and keep building your legacy.
That's all for this episode of Amplify Your Legacy. A huge thank you for listening in today. I hope today's conversation has sparked some reflection on your own legacy. Let's keep the conversation going. Connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram at Solana Brown. And visit solanabrown.com for more resources on growing and preserving your legacy. Be sure to leave a rating or review. It helps others discover the show. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out on future episodes packed with inspiration and actionable strategies. Until next time, keep amplifying your legacy.